Grammar. It's a tool for understanding another language and expressing yourself. No more, no less. Because a grammar is like a thumbtack. It holds things together, it's small but useful, and it's painful if you use it in the wrong way. So then why do people learning other languages insist on using grammar like this? Well, if you're like most people, you were forced to learn grammar in a classroom, so it's probably not your fault. When it comes to learning another language, I find that most people try to proactively learn grammar and reactively learn new vocabulary, when in reality it should be the other way around. So here are the numbers and the emotions of why you should give grammar the appropriate backseat that it deserves, and instead prioritize growing your vocabulary and enjoying your time reading, watching, and listening to content. I have this friend, let's call him Ari because that's his name. After every video I upload about how your vocabulary can grow as you read Harry Potter, or here's my vocabulary after a 100-day Polish challenge, he asks the same question. You focus too much on growing your vocabulary when trying to learn a new language. Why don't you make a video about the importance of grammar? It's like, Ari, come on, you know the name of the channel is one word at a time, but the two real reasons are that I feel stupid every time I try to consciously study grammar, and because grammar study doesn't work as a way to learn a new language. Let me explain. First of all, grammar is made up of words, so that's already a point in the camp of growing your vocabulary. But we know that grammar is about connecting words mostly, as well as rules, and more on those rules in just a second. If you generously add up all of the articles, prepositions, pronouns, adverbs, conjunctions, specialized verbs, and other grammar gobbledygook in English, you only have 212 words? With most estimates saying that you need at least 10,000 unique words to approach fluency in a language, that means all of English grammar gets you just 2% of the way there, and in the most dull way possible. You may notice that many of these words are in the 100 most common English words, so you may think that, hey, you're making real strides by learning grammar, since there's a myth that the 100 most common words make up 50% of spoken and written words in a language. Here's a whole video I made on the subject, since that's technically true, but actually stupid. Those 100 words don't give you 50% of the meaning, and it only takes a few examples to see how short-sighted of a conclusion this is. That's because even at the beginner level, nearly every sentence includes words that aren't in the top 1,000 most common words, and that last point is a big reason why you should begin the long but rewarding process of building up your vocabulary. I cannot explain English grammar, but I function just fine in the language. As a native English speaker, I cannot tell you what a subordinating conjunction or indefinite article is, even though that last sentence used both of those things. I really try to be a semblance of a functioning English speaker, and while I can't explain most grammar concepts for English, I still have an estimated vocabulary size of around 20,000 word families, which is solid according to linguistics professor and channel idea granddaddy Paul Nation. So I can't reliably identify the subject of a sentence or tell you what a modal auxiliary verb is in English, German, or Hebrew, but I can still enjoy some of the best literature that each of the languages has to offer and occasionally contribute something useful to a conversation. To the idea that grammar only gets you 2% of the way to fluency, you'll probably rightfully push back that grammar isn't about learning individual words, it's about understanding how they work together. That is true, and it gets us to the how and when you should use grammar when learning a new language. It should be used primarily to remove roadblocks that get in the way of doing what you actually want to do. And this is where we get to the main argument that your interactions with grammar should be reactive, not proactive. I'll give you an example in German. I wanted to bond over this teen fiction book with my wife. And for those of you blessed to live in ignorance of separable verbs, this linguistic Satan spawn is where you have individual words that will split in half and play hide and seek within a sentence. And my favorite example comes from this book. Don't worry about the details, but this word and this word are two parts of the same singular separable verb, which means that there are 21 words separating the two halves of the verb aufstellen. I wanted to read this book, but I couldn't get through this convoluted sentence, so I spent a few minutes refreshing the concept, got the grammar explanation I needed with a few examples, and then continued reading. I call this reactive grammar study because I used what I came across to determine what I was focusing on. The advantage here is that you're solving a specific problem that you have instead of preparing for any potential roadblock that could come up. So when you come across something in your reading or your watching and you're stuck in your not knowing, that's your cue to go get a grammar explanation. Spend a few minutes reading about the concept, get yourself a few examples, and then make a mental note to keep an eye out for it as you're reading and watching more. The primary issue with how most people study grammar is that for 98% of people, the benefits that you get absolutely decimate any interest you would have in sticking with the language long term. It would be like reading the 191-page official baseball rulebook cover to cover before going outside to just have a catch. Yes, you'd learn Rule 5.09G that runners advanced one base when a ball lodges in the umpire's or catcher's mask or paraphernalia. But that doesn't happen often, and you're not getting any better at throwing, catching, or hitting a ball knowing that information. Whether it's in a classroom or working through a textbook on Intro to Language X, when you learn about dozens of grammar concepts but don't get any immediate value from that grammar concept or value from the language at all, it's deflating. I am not saying that grammar isn't useful. Let me make that a positive. Understanding grammar is useful, but what I'm also saying is that oftentimes the process of understanding grammar is bad enough that you give up before you get to the phase where doing things in another language can be fun and valuable. Naturally, as a beginner, almost everything is unknown, so you can reactively and productively learn grammar so that you're able to engage with basic sentences and you're building up your skills so that you can work with level-appropriate content. If you work with the right content, you'll be coming across new concepts that are appropriate for you to go and look up. So your questions about grammar and your explorations will be a supplement to your main activities rather than being the main activity. Let's get concrete about the right balance of grammar study when learning another language with 3 guidelines. Think about the way that you study your native language. In American schools, English is one of 6 or 7 subjects that you're studying over the course of a year, which means that that's 10 to 15% of your overall time focused on grammar. And it's likely less because you're oftentimes doing other things like writing or analyzing texts. So you should aim for dedicated grammar study with a textbook to take up no more than 10 to 15% of your time with another language. As you're beginning to learn another language, do a 30-day sprint focused on grammar, making sure that you're also watching other content on the side. Based on my experience with German, going through a beginner textbook like this for 30 minutes a day can be a great way to lay a foundation in vocabulary, in grammar, and the culture. So do your 30 minutes or 1 hour of grammar study, and then follow that up by watching a few YouTube videos or an episode of a TV show in the language that you're trying to learn. For that immersion time, you're not going to understand a lot of what's going on, but you should be enjoying yourself, and you'll get better as time goes on. And once you finish up that beginner sprint, you can move on to the next step. Once you have a solid foundation after a month or two, use the content and the books and the TV shows to be the source of inspiration for looking up additional grammar points. If you're paying attention, there's a lot you can learn and look up. I'd recommend keeping it at no more than 2 to 3 in-depth lookups each day, so that way you can actually spend time immersing and not just going down rabbit holes. Beyond this reactive grammar learning, make sure that you're also picking up vocabulary that's valuable to you. You may start with the words in a textbook or looking at the most common ones or a specific list, but as long as you're actively growing your vocabulary, you'll be able to enjoy more and more of the language. This shift of proactively building my vocabulary and reactively learning more about grammar means that language learning is now about studying via curiosity, and data analysis of languages has helped enrich that process as well. If you're interested in learning more about data analysis, math, AI, or coding, I'd recommend that you check out the sponsor of today's video, Brilliant. With both practical and conceptual courses like this one on programming in Python, Brilliant teaches problem solving with a hands-on approach, and it helps you to get smarter every single day. Whether it's understanding the concepts underlying programming or writing your own lines of code from day one, you can start analyzing and visualizing data in Brilliant's courses from sources like Airbnb, Starbucks, Spotify, and more. This type of thinking helps me formulate even better language learning questions that can only be answered via coding and data, which in turn makes me an even better coder and language learner. It's with skills and projects like these that I'm able to analyze my own vocabulary or looking at the scripts of TV shows and full novels to help me improve how I learn German. To check out everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/oneword@a-time or scan the QR code on screen or look at the link in the description. If you decide to sign up, you'll also get 20% off of a premium annual subscription, and a big thank you to Brilliant for partnering together on this video. So one last thought. You can definitely study grammar if you want. The question is, why would you study grammar more than you need to? If you enjoy grammar, fine. But at a certain point, you should care about what you can get from the language, and the badge of honor of studying a language starts to fade away from what you're getting in return. If you're focused on grammar and what's covered in textbooks, you're getting a very narrow sliver of how the language is used in the real world. So if you're intimately familiar with the rules of the language and you might technically be right in any argument that comes up, are you going to stick with the language long term just because of your affinity for grammar? I think that it comes more down to how you spend your time meaningfully with the language. If you're interested in experiments for how to build out your vocabulary, consider watching this video. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel. And when it comes to the topic of grammar, consider it settled, Ari.